Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the MLB Desk Podcast. I'm your host, Alec Peckett. On today's show, you'll get my top 5 weekend series to watch, top 4 pitching matchups to watch, sink or swim segment, waiver wire 2.0, and much more. Without further ado, let's jump right in and let me talk about my top 5 weekend series. At number 5. And I know this is going to be controversial that it's number 5 on the list because there's 4 other weekend series that are better than it. But I have the Red Sox and Yankees at number 5. And the only reason that this is not higher on the list is because the Red Sox and my co-host of the Around the Diamond podcast would agree with me, Brad. The only reason the Yankees Red Sox is at 5 right now is because the Red Sox are going through a difficult stretch. They are not very good this year. And I can't see, and you'll hear me talk about Yankees Red Sox again later on in another segment, but I can't see this series being one-sided. That's why it's at number 5. At number 4, I have the Marlins and the Cardinals. And on tomorrow night, it'll be Max Meyer, I believe, against Dustin May. And that's a good pitching matchup and all. But the reason this is at number 4 is because we don't know. Are the Cardinals starting to fizzle out, or are they going to stay competitive the rest of the year? I would say that they will stay competitive. Then again, what do I know? At number 3, I have the White Sox and the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals are wrapping up a series today with the Tampa Bay Rays. The final game starts at 12:10. And I'm going to say this. I think this weekend series is going to be really good. That's why it's at number 3 and not number 1. Because there is a weekend series at number 1 that is, on paper, it's probably going to be absolute, as the young kids like to say these days, absolute cinema. But White Sox Royals, I think it's going to be good. At number 2, I have the A's and the Angels. They just met last weekend, and they're meeting again this weekend in LA. If we're going to get the same kind of weekend series we got last week, I'm all here for it. They're at number 2 for a reason. But I think it's going to be a really good weekend series. I think there's a chance the A's take 2 out of 3, maybe lose 1. And at number 1, the guy in the thumbnail, Freddie Freeman, it is the Dodgers versus the Padres. Anytime these two teams face off, there's always drama. Whether it be somebody getting hit, whether it be a near no-hitter, whether it be a ton of runs scored, or anything. But again, this is going to be in another segment where I talk about this series specifically. But now, we're going to briefly get to my waiver wire 2.0. If you want to see the full waiver wire in its entirety, it is up on the sportsbreakdown.net website. So give that a look. My number 6 waiver ad for waiver wire 2.0. Again, all these guys are under 80% rostered. And number 6 is Taj Bradley of the Twins. 42.6% rostered. 42.1% rostered. He needs to be added in more leagues. I would say let's get him up to 50% rostered. The under 80%, I stopped talking about these guys once they get to 75% rostered. At number 5, I've got Connor Griffin of the Pirates. He's an IL stash right now, 44.2% rostered. Sounds like he's going to be back this weekend for the Pirates. If you need help at shortstop because you've been struggling, I mean, I've seen leagues where people have picked up Taylor Walls. And yes, Taylor Walls is hitting better this year. But I would highly suggest dropping a guy like Taylor Walls for Connor Griffin. My number 4 waiver wire ad is first baseman / DH from the Rockies, TJ Rumfield. 51 point, so basically 52% rostered. And I can see a world where you pick him up and he plays in Coors Field, which is notoriously known for high-scoring games. At number 3, I've got Nasim Nunez of the Nationals, second baseman / shortstop. 12.6%, 12.6% rostered. If you need a guy that can get you stolen bases, he leads the league in stolen bases. And if he's out there on your waiver wire, add him now. Number 2, Brandon Woodruff, starting pitcher of the Brewers. His first start back, he went 8 shutout innings. He's only 78% rostered. So there's a chance I only talk about him today on the waiver wire, and he doesn't get mentioned next week. And my number 1 waiver ad this week for waiver wire 2.0 is Dylan Cruz, outfielder of the Washington Nationals. 6.5%, 6.3% rostered. Please add him. It looks like he has fixed the reason he was sent down to the minors to begin with to start the season. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we get to my top 4 pitching matchups to watch this weekend. At number 4, it is Garrett Cole against Peyton Tolley. And that would be on Friday night. I think that's going to be a really good pitching matchup. I honestly do. And people need to start taking into account that we are seeing Peyton Tolley break out. Number 3, it is Hunter Brown against Casey Mize on Sunday. That's going to be another good pitching matchup. And I really like that. There's not going to be, I do think there's going to be some runs scored, but not a lot. At number 2, I've got Andrew Abbott against Paul Skeens tomorrow night. Sign me up. Skeens against Abbott, good luck. There's not going to be a lot of runs scored. And at number 1, I've got Drew Rasmussen going for the Rays on Sunday against Eduardo Rodriguez. Rodriguez has been the most consistent pitcher this year for the Diamondbacks. And that is your 4 pitching matchups to watch. Now we get to one of the 3 last segments on the show, and that would be sink or swim. And my first sink, because that's where we start, we go in reverse. So we start with the sink. And that is the Dodgers will get swept by the Padres. Sorry, Dodgers fans. I just don't think, with all the injuries you've had in the rotation, I don't see a avenue where you can win this series. Yeah, that's better. And the Padres just got swept by the Braves. No, the Padres just swept the Braves. So, you know what that means? They're probably going to sweep the Dodgers, and they're not supposed to. Number 2, the Brewers get swept by the Cubs. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the hat I'm wearing right now. It's a Cubs hat. I think they sweep the Brewers this weekend. I do like the trajectory the Brewers are on, but I think it's blasphemy that they go out and make a big trade for Tarek Skubal. And the last one is the Yankees won't sweep the Red Sox. I mentioned that you might hear me say that, talk about the Yankees, Red Sox. I think the Yankees are probably going to take 2 out of 3 or lose 2 out of 3 of the Red Sox. I can see the wild thing happening where the Yankees get swept and the Rays end up in first place by the end of the weekend. Now we get to swim. And my first bullet point under the swim category is Pete Crow Armstrong. First of all, where's all my Pete Crow Armstrong haters that said he's overrated? Oh, wait, that's Phillies fans because they don't know what it's like to have a good center fielder. Sorry to put it out there, but that is wholeheartedly the truth. They don't know what it's like to have a good center fielder. Pete Crow Armstrong stays scorching hot is my first one. And he's been on a nice stretch of late. Number 2, Jacob, and I have the tendency to turn around guys that are slumping. And let's see if I could work my magic. Jacob Marcy, over the last week, has been hitting under 200, so under the Mendoza line. I think that changes this weekend. I think Jacob Marcy starts to break out of that slump, and he goes on a nice, lengthy hitting streak, which includes this week, that hitting streak will start this weekend. And to wrap up this segment, Kevin McGonigal stays hot. McGonigal's been hitting basically 300 over the last week, and I think he's going to continue that torrid pace this weekend. But, ladies and gentlemen, that'll wrap up this episode of the show. I will see everybody back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. again for another episode, of the Inside the NFL, where I'm grading every NFL team's 2026 NFL draft. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Please remember to like and subscribe.